'Tis the 15th of the 10th, 2024. The time is 17 minutes past 10. And in the weird and wacky world, there is the one that F's. There is news. As if there is not ever news, it never ceases, it always continues. Undefeated, undisputed settings. And today, up first on the docket, we've got to talk about Red Bull, because it feels like D-Day as far as their championship is concerned, and their campaign too, their tenure potentially as an F1 team, as a sports franchise. Frederick Vasseur has had some things to say about Sir Lewis, Carl Davids and Hamilton. For once, praising Lewis Hamilton. Again, this comes on the back of Binotto, who had some very disparaging things to say. Gunther Steiner too, and Ralph Schumacher. And so too, we've got to talk about one Liam Lawson. Techie, he's gone on a podcast and talked about the pressure, the not insubstantial travails and foibles that comes with being a Red Bull Racing junior team member. That one Helmut Marko was phoning him up at 6 a.m. in the morning, telling him how SH1 he has been, that he needs to improve on the back of bad performances. First on the docket though, it's Red Bull Racing, is it not? It has to be. This COTA Grand Prix means something to them, not just for the championship, but as far as their tenure going forward. Max Verstappen has told you he needs harmony and a car capable of winning races and therefore championships, if indeed he's going to stay at Red Bull Racing through to the end of his contract in 2028. Helmut Marko has had some things to say about that. He's told Michelle Foster of PlanetF1.com that we need to improve significantly even as far as the car to turn things around. And then around that notion, Dr. Helmut Marko of Red Bull GmbH says that he's optimistic that we will be stronger in Austin than we were in Singapore. Bloody Nora, of course you need to be, Dr. Helmut Marko. There are stakes here, do you know what I mean? Championships to win, careers to save as far as Maximilian Verstappen and his symbiosis, his partnership with Red Bull Racing. Because if he loses this one, rumour on the F1 curb is that he will be leaving. There are performance clauses in his contract, lest we forget, stating that if he's not in the top three as at the first three races next year, then he can null and void his contract with immediate effect. Ladies and gentlemen, do you like it, F1? Helmut Marko continues. As soon as Max starts winning races again, Checo Perez's form normally picks up. The whole situation, the whole complex as far as the competitive landscape for 2024 and the championships that are the drivers and constructors, as far as Dr. Helmut Marko is concerned, will change 180 degrees settings. But to do that, as far as the constituent parameters to do that, requisites, prerequisites even, Helmut Marko says we need a wider working window for the car, which can't just function in a very narrow area. What's he talking about? You've heard that these guys, Max Verstappen in particular, talking about the car won't bloody turn in, I'm on -5 brake bias and it just won't do. Well, the issue for Red Bull is that the right hand doesn't talk to the left as far as the handling dynamic of the RB20 iteration of that car. Unbalanced. The front and the rear axles aren't talking to each other. You'll get rear instability, and then all of a sudden the car won't turn in on low minimum speed turns, a la Rascasse at Monaco. Why? Because they've got correlation issues as far as the CFD and the wind tunnel as versus what happens on track. You'll understand that the story as far as this tech spec of ground effect cars is that there is lap time always on the minimum speed. You need to get the car to turn in, and of course to do that you need still a bit stability and you need correlation. What these guys are doing as far as Red Bull, they're seeing absolute downforce points in real time even, but when they bring it to the track it doesn't correlate because the car is too knife edgy to drive. Absolute points in terms of downforce gets you nowhere if of course the car isn't easy to drive, and that's the problem that they're dealing with. They need to broaden the operating window. It's too knife edgy, too narrow as far as the sweet spot setup of that car. To do that, Helmut Marko says we need a wider working window which can't just function in every narrow area, and we need the necessary speed. So those two factors, and I trust that our technicians are capable of achieving that. Now, Listen, how do you like your mission, Pierre Vache and Enrico Balbo? You lot were talking about when Adrian Newey leaves, we can operate independently of him, that Adrian Newey hasn't touched a car for the longest time, that we've diverged as far as the design philosophy trees up which we think we should be barking. Well, over to you now, Pierre Vache, Enrico Balbo. Max Verstappen has given you plenty enough feedback, so too Helmut Marko, so too Christian Horner. Now is your time, therefore, to show and prove that you never ever needed Adrian Newey, that indeed he was on your shoulders and getting credit for your hard work. Now he's not there. Now he's about to go to pastures anew in Aston Martin. Now Enrico Balbo and Pierre Vache, now's your time to shine. Helmut Marko continues, the performance has to be demonstrated on track, not just in simulation, CFD, wind tunnel settings. In the past, the lack of alignment between simulation and reality was one of the reasons why we were led in the wrong direction, bringing upgrades as they did in Hungary, which indeed regressed the car. This magic underfloor that they're bringing to COTA will be a hybridization per se of various different upgrades that they've brought throughout the season. They're trying to understand, backwards engineer this where they went wrong, and that's a hard thing to do in an already difficult world that is the weird and wacky one, the one that F's. Red Bull are set to introduce, continues Michelle Foster, an upgraded package at Austin, the team's final throw of the dice in the development as they try to beat McLaren to both championships. The revised package, which will include a new floor, is expected to address the RB20's mechanical and aerodynamic performances. It needs to. The stakes are so high. You can't even put words to it. Max Verstappen will leave. What happens then as far as Red Bull are concerned? Well, Jos Verstappen has told you, right? He told you earlier on this season that this team will implode, cease to exist as a sports franchise, Red Bull Racing that you know it. Helmut Marko continues, I think for all teams, Austin will be a natural time of year on the back of the autumn break even. 4-week settings, long lead time to bring some news, to bring some serious material upgrades of note. We have something important, but I think Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren too will also bring some updates. This is Christian Horner speaking. He concludes, the whole team has worked hard to understand the problems and to solve for them. If everything goes well, we will remedy the situation in Austin. And Christian Horner is cutting a very different tone here, because I remember, you will recall a couple of race weekends ago, he post-mortemed it with, we know we have a problem, but we don't know how to fix it. We don't understand the true nature of the problem, and they need to expedite for their learning curve with a view to solve this and keep their man Maximilian Verstappen in the hunt for the 2024 Drivers' Championship. Oh, the humanity. Frederick Vasseur has talked about Lewis Hamilton, and it feels like this comes on the back of a very many people talking about Lewis Hamilton in very disparaging terms. Here's what Frederick has had to say. That Lewis Hamilton is a machine. The main difference between Lewis Hamilton and the majority of the grid, says team principal of Scuderia Ferrari, and I don't want to make personal comparisons, but it's that Lewis Hamilton is super organized as a company would be. So Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton, therefore, is not a businessman. He's a businessman. He organises his endeavours and his multitudinous commitments in a way that is commensurate with that of a 7-time champion. Of course he goes to the Met Gala. Of course he's got a gazillion altruistic ventures and projects. Juggling all of those balls and spinning all of those plates in real time is therefore Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton's gift, says one Frederick Vasseur. And this is the lesson that Charles Leclerc will learn from him when he joins the red team as at 2025. Frederick Vasseur continues, in his mind, in his approach, he knows exactly what he wants to do, when he wants to do it. He's able to separate and compartmentalize every single pillar of the activity. And for us, for Ferrari, that will be helpful going forward. Oh, the humanity. He's nailed it. This is Lewis Hamilton's gift, the ability to compartmentalise for the not insubstantial commitments requisite that embody and epitomise what it is to be an F1 driver. There it is. And again, all of these bods are saying different, right? Gunther Steiner says, of course, Leclerc has a lot to learn from Hamilton and how to balance his commitments in the championship and outside interests. But this was Gunther Steiner who said if he had to pick 2 drivers on the grid currently, his first one is Max and his second one wouldn't be Lewis, it would be Lando. Bonotto said something similar, that Scuderia Ferrari have made a grave mistake in signing Lewis Hamilton, and were he the team principal of Scuderia Ferrari, that's not a mistake he would have made. Ralf Schumacher, brother of Michael, said something similar, that he believes Max Verstappen's ceiling is higher than Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton's. And that's all well and good. You know, that's fine. Far for it to be me to disagree with these paddock insiders. But what we won't do, what we're not going to do, as at the 15th of the 10th, 2024, we're not going to rewrite history. This dude is the winningest driver, is Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton, in all of F1 history. Do you know what I mean? Put some respect on his name. Therefore, 7-time champion, GOAT settings, revolutionised the game, as did Michael Schumacher back in the day. As far as his wellness and his approach to it is his ruthlessness. Therefore, what we're not going to do on this channel, never ever, is sacrifice truth, value and objectivity at the altar of partisanship or revisionist history. Mattia Bonotto, Gunther Steiner, Ralf Schumacher, brother of Michael. Never ever. Can't do it, Daniel. Well, Lewis may not be the GOAT, but that's actually a subjective. Of course it's subjective. All of this conversation, listen, it is subjective. There is an element. There's no Bible. There's no reason or there's no established way that you mete out greatness, right? But some of these theories and what they're saying, their tone is nothing if not reminiscent of revisionist history as theses of Max Schumacher. It's all about Max this weekend and Liam Lawson, who we'll get to in short order, I promise you. Going a bit long today, longer than I anticipated. Max Verstappen, Martin Brundle had this to say about Max Verstappen's damage limitation project, managing 52 points between himself and the second place Lando Norris. Martin Brundle had this to say, that I don't think Max Verstappen can do the damage limitation thing. Seeing it out isn't something that Max Verstappen has in his locker. I think, therefore, he'll be going for it big time. Martin Brundle's word on Sky Sports F1, not mine. And this is techie, because Tom Clarkson, accredited F1 journo, the man who conducts and chairs the official FIA driver press conference, had this to say on a recent podcast, that Max Verstappen, if indeed he's to win the championship as at 2024, needs to do one thing. He needs to quell his enthusiasm, understand his circumstance and opportunity in real time, and manage for it. There will be an Austria when you've got a charging Lando Norris, and where the best amount of points, the most amount of points even that you're going to take, is a second place and 18 points. Therefore, understand that in real time and manage for the opportunity that you have in front of you. You can only play with the cards that you're dealt, is Tom Clarkson's point. And I don't hate it. But I don't want for Max Verstappen to be any different than he has been. I would argue all of those bods that are saying that Max Verstappen can't handle adversity, well, please see Imola as your exhibit A. Please see Canada as your exhibit B this year. Please see Spain as your exhibit C this year. I would argue that he's learning to do as Tom Clarkson has outlined he needs to, as far as his modus operandi, requisite to win himself a championship, a driver's championship in 2-4. Indeed, what does that look like? Optimizing for his circumstance. He can't win every single race. Definitely not each of the 6 between now and the end of the season. Why? Because Lando Norris is fast as fudge and he has the quickest machine underneath him. Over humanity. Jomo, how you doing, chap? Benzi, you guys are legends. Listen, let me say as final topic on the docket, as at the morning of the 15th of the 10th, 2024. Check this out. Liam Lawson. It's techie for Liam. First time in an F1 car proper. His is the second drive alongside one Yuki Tsunoda, but it's going to get techie for him. He's given an appearance on a podcast which we'll go into later. I haven't listened to it quite yet, but I've read the summaries, and here's what he had to say. He talked about the not insubstantial pressure around him, but so too he talked about the circumstance around him superseding Danny Rick, the Honey Badger, the man most beloved on the grid in 2024, Mr. Mainstream, North America's darling per se. He's talked about Christian Horner having guaranteed him a seat. Why? Because we know Liam Lawson had a performance clause in his contract that said if he didn't get a seat as at September the 12th of this year, then he could go elsewhere, seek pastures anew, have a word with Audi, formerly known as Sauber, who, as at the time of writing, are considering a few names. Please see Colapinto. Please see Valtteri Bottas. Please see Bartoletto et al. Liam Lawson would have been in there. Why? Because Audi have a very close relationship with Red Bull Racing. Outlaw, you are a champion, sir. Thank you so much. So it gets techie for Liam Lawson, but Horner, he says, had guaranteed him a seat, much to the disenchantment of Danny Rick fans all around the world, who will see that as predestined, therefore. Well, you weren't really going to give Danny Rick a chance then, if indeed you'd promised the seat to Liam Lawson, surely, but I think it's techie. I think Christian Horner would have guaranteed him a seat somewhere. You remember Helmut Marko saying that Liam Lawson will be a Red Bull Racing driver. And you recall Christian Horner countered and said he will be an F1 driver, not necessarily in our team, that we could loan him out, therefore. And I think you want to factor this in to this equation. After Liam Lawson joined Red Bull Academy, however, says Liam Lawson, Marko would call him at 6 a.m. following underwhelming race weekends. He warned him that his future was at risk if he failed to improve. Why? Because F1 and F2 as a feeder formula are both piranhas tanks, right? This is what it takes in F1. Deliver, defend, or vacate. Danny Rick is testament to that. Logan Sargent before him, the only one that's escaped the weird and wacky world that is meritocracy in F1, as at 2024, is the one they call Checo Perez. But I feel that this is a stave execution even for the Mexican Minister of Defence. Martin Brundle, speaking to Sky Sports F1, had this to say about Liam Lawson's second debut. Lest we forget, he debuted 5 races when Danny Rick fell victim to circumstance or his own ineptitude. Take your hands off the steering wheel unless you want to break them, Danny Rick. That was his failure. And as of that, Liam Lawson took his opportunity, seized it, beating Yuki Tsunoda on 2 occasions last year of 5 of the races that they both finished. Speaking to Sky Sports F1, Martin Brundle said it was clear that he hasn't got time to get up to speed. Liam Lawson can't play his way in to the crease or this innings. The F1 is a cutthroat business, and he sent the Kiwi a simple message if indeed he harbours aspirations of succeeding one Checo Perez. Outlaw, you're a legend, chap. Honestly, mate, I'm humbly grateful that each and every single one of you support this channel and call me out on some of my ball feathers sometimes. But Martin Brundle had this to say. Asked about whether he believes how Lawson will fare at United States Grand Prix and beyond, he said, if we look at it, what he did this year, last year even, probably with a lot less pressure and a lot less expectation on him. He looked good deputising for Danny Rick last year, didn't he? So this is it. This is not a finishing school, however, F1. Deliver or you're out. We all go into F1 as drivers, says Martin Brundle, because somebody else got kicked out. That's how you get in. And then you get kicked out and somebody else gets a chance. You defend or vacate. You perform or you go elsewhere. This is Game of Thrones. Maybe you either win or you get sacked. That's just the natural law of Formula One, says Martin Brundle, and he would know from first-hand experience, right? Early 90s settings. Lawson's been biding his time, and it's a fashion business. It all has to be experienced drivers for the first 5 minutes a little while ago, and then all of a sudden Behrman comes in, Kimi comes in, Colapinto comes in, and they show that young drivers have all that you need to deliver, if, of course, they're given the opportunity. Brundle alludes to this, saying all of a sudden the fashion a la mode, it's to get in an F2 driver, a young one, because the opportunity cost of missing out on the next Max Verstappen or the next Sir Lewis Hamilton is too great, far too vast. Toto Wolff has been fighting with a view to amend for his mistakes of 2015-16 when he had the opportunity to sign one Max Verstappen, 3 soon to be 4-time champion, and missed it. Toto, indeed, team principals Frederick Vasseur, Christian Horner, and now James Vowles too, now realising that if there is a decent F2 driver, then you get him in, particularly if in real time you have an materially underperforming driver in the seat. All of a sudden, the fashion is to get in an F2 driver, says Brundle. It looks like you can get any one of them and they'll do a good job. I think Lawson will be fine. Brundle then asked what he needs to do to replace, and this is your exam question, chap. What does Liam Lawson hasn't come in there to sit in an RB Visa Cash App car. He wants a seat at the head of the table at parent member team Red Bull Racing, alongside one Maximilian Verstappen, should indeed he choose to stay into 2025. That's where Liam Lawson wants to be. And Brundles, when he speaks to this, on what does he need to do to replace Checo Perez, he says if he does a really good job, then he should be fine. Andrew Benson talks about this as well in his question and answer, saying that what does success look like as far as Liam Lawson's concerned? What does he need to do? He says beating Yuki Tsunoda would be good. That's your B+. That's your base spec level, your benchmark against which you'll ultimately be meted. If you can beat Yuki Tsunoda with any sort of consistency over the next 6 races, tick, tick, perfect start. However, if you can beat Checo Perez in a car that everybody agrees is worse than the RB20, then that's it. That's your carte blanche. Then you are in Liam Lawson. Then you give Christian Horner no decision to make. They have to therefore put you in that car. And this is the case that they gave one Liam Lawson. Everybody will be watching him this weekend at the Qatar Grand Prix to see how he fares. Can he in the first instance beat his teammate, notwithstanding the fact that he's got a cheeky grid place penalty because he'll be taking an extra engine? Can he beat Yuki Tsunoda with any consistency? That's your base level. As your second tier, can he nail himself one Checo Perez? Because then, again, for the avoidance of doubt, you give one Christian Horner, team principal of Red Bull Racing, no decision to make. How do you like your F1?